The report for October 29th, 2020.
Epidemiology. An online Epidemiology. An online survey of 1,777 pregnant and postpartum women conducted in Japan found a high prevalence of prenatal anhedonia, depression, and anxiety evaluated by the EDPS, which was positively correlated with the perceived risk of contracting COVID-19, concerns regarding financial effects of the pandemic, and lack of social support during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Understanding the pathology. A prospective observational study conducted in Spain analyzed 26 COVID-19 positive patients with pulmonary embolisms or PEs. The patients had been screened for DVTs or deep vein thrombosis via compression ultrasound and found that only 2 had evidence of DVTs. This observation suggests that the PEs are from a local thromboinflammatory syndrome induced by SARS-CoV-2 and not by a thromboembolic event.
Transmission and prevention. Research and prevention. Researchers from Brazil analyzed the results of 4,353 RT-PCR SARS-CoV-2 tests and 2,275 SARS-CoV-2 antibody tests from patients with known blood types collected before June 22, 2020. They found an insignificantly higher infection rate in individuals with type A blood compared to type O blood. Indicating that ABO types may have a less direct effect on the rates of SARS-CoV-2 infections than previously predicted, and that altered rates of infection may be mediated by other qualities of the population being studied.
Management. A prospective observational study conducted in Spain examined the complete blood count or CBC and cell population data or CPD via the XN20 analyzer. They studied 153 COVID-19 patients and 72 bacterial infection patients and found the neutrophil to lymphocyte ratio, or NLR, helped distinguish COVID-19 and bacterial infections with a positive predictive value of 74% and a negative predictive value of 97%, suggesting that NLR, along with other CBC and CPD values, may assist in accurately differentiating infectious etiologies during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Welcome back to the Daily Report.
The report. That's all for today. Thanks for listening. That's all for during the COVID-19 pandemic. That's all for today. COVID-19 pandemic. That's all for today. Thanks for listening. Listening.
Continue.
The report for October 29th, 2020.
Epidemiology. An online survey of 1,000
29th, 2000. For October 29th, 2020.
Epidemiology. An online survey of 1,777 pregnant and postpartum women conducted in Japan found a high prevalence of prenatal anhedonia, depression, and anxiety evaluated by the EDPS, which was positively correlated with 1,700
2020.
Epidemiology. An online survey of 1,777 pregnant EDPS, which was continue to stay
Highlights from our new 2000 report for October 29th, 2020.
epidemiology.
The report for October 2nd, 2020.
Climate. 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 No fault compensation for vaccine injury. Equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines are explored by public health experts associated with Yale University. They discuss the concept of vaccine nationalism, the creation of the creation of the COVAX facility, and the plight of low and middle income countries during the COVID-19 pandemic. To address the concerns regarding the benefits and risks of the COVID-19 vaccine, as well as vaccine manufacturers' protection and liability, the authors suggest utilizing a no-fault compensation for vaccine injuries.
Epidemiology. A compromised specific humoral immune response against SARS-CoV-2 receptor binding domain is related to viral persistence and periodic shedding in the gastrointestinal tract, according to a cohort study conducted by various medical institutions in China. They found They found 21 of 289 Chinese patients with COVID-19 were readmitted due to persistent SARS-CoV-2 positivity. Among them, anal viral detection was positive in 15 of 21, or 71% of the patients, and there was replication in the GI tract in 3 of 16 patients, with no respiratory tract replication. They hypothesize there is ongoing viral rebound due to decreased levels of IgA and IgG antibodies to the viral receptor binding domain, and thus a lack of protective humoral immune response, suggesting this leads to persistence of SARS-CoV-2 in the GI tract, along with active viral shedding.
Transmission and prevention. Researchers evaluate the effect of climate on COVID-19 transmission in 220 cities across 3 climate zones. They found that the temperature and humidity may be major contributors to COVID-19 transmission. Average temperatures and relative humidity were the primary contributors in Europe, while diurnal temperatures were the most important for India, and temperature seasonality was the most important for Brazil.
R&D, diagnosis and treatments. Two sample pooling strategies for SARS-CoV-2 RNA detection for efficient screening of COVID-19 were compared. Using 23 pools, each containing 1 positive sample and either 5 or 9 negatives, authors demonstrated a similar diagnostic sensitivity to individual tests, but pooling biotransport medium resulted in a false negative, while pooling swabs resulted in a diagnosis without loss of sensitivity. Authors suggest pooling swabs may facilitate testing in higher quantities at lower costs, which could be used where resources are limited. However, this strategy would require collecting double swab samples for each individual in the event the pool was positive to identify the exact positive individual. Accuracy of serological testing for SARS-CoV-2 antibodies were presented based on first results from a large mixed method evaluation study. The study looked at 3 ELISAs for accuracy: the nucleoprotein, or N, the S1 domain of spike protein, or S1, and lateral flow immunoassay, LFI, for the full-length spike protein. From 1,477 patient samples, 112 of which were COVID-19 positive by RT-PCR, authors found specificities exceeded 94% for all 3 assays, with varying sensitivities of 88% for RT, 89.3% for S1, and 72.9% for the N protein, with 1 With 1 month follow-up, 52 of the 54 COVID-19 positive samples of tested serum dilutions greater than 1 to 16 were indicative of protective immunity. The authors argue that ELISAs that target the RBD and S1 protein are good candidates for detecting protective immunity from the COVID-19 virus and thus require further investigation. That's all for today. Thanks for listening. .org. CPD values. Read less, do more. Thanks for listening.
Continue to stay informed with us
Read less, do more.
with COVID-19, LST.org.
For October 2nd, 2020.
Climate.
The report. The report for October 2nd, 2020.
Climate. No fault compensation for vaccine injury and equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines are explored. By public health experts.
Were indicative B and S1 protein are good candidates for detecting protective immunity from the COVID-19 virus and thus require further investigation. That's all for today. Thanks for listening. For today, thanks for listening.
Continue to stay informed with us
Read less, do more.
with COVID-19 LST.org.
That's all for today. Thanks for listening.
Continue
Detecting protective immunity from the COVID-19 virus and thus require further investigation. That's all for today. Thanks for listening.